Alright, welcome back to Tales of the Wedding Rings, Anime Review, Episode 25. We are here reviewing the final episode released for Season 2 of the show. And this episode adapted from the rest of Chapter 66, the entirety of 66, 67, 68, almost the entirety of 69 except for like 2 pages. Like, you could say this episode adapted maybe like 2 full chapters and finish up another one, almost entirety of one, though I think basically that was acceptable for the cut they made. And 70, they didn't even finish adapting it. It's like the middle portion of the chapter, and then go out much forward after that. So if you kind of think about it, there's like maybe 15 chapters left. I mean, you could do a third season, but I'll get to that later. So here's what happens. So Sato gets consumed by the darkness, though lucky enough Hime, thanks to convincing basically her counterparts from the previous generation of the Ring Princesses, use her power to break through to get to Sato. They hold hands, they break through this darkness that Sato was in, and then of course thanks to the combined power, combining his sword with Hime's staff, they combine to form like a light sword to destroy the Abyss King, who's taken the body of the previous Ring King. And you would think, like, well, they broke that. That means, like, battle's over. Everyone's happy, but nope, we're not done just yet. Because, of course, basically, the Abyss is trying to come through the frickin' sky. So then Satoru, along with the other Ring Princesses, all combine their powers. No, it's not form Captain Planet, because I know that's a common meme for years. People around my generation basically, like, with our powers combined, we form Captain Planet. Yes, because I've watched the show. A show that was created by Ted Turner for basically having ham-fisted environmental messages. And a cartoon that, well, people didn't mind the stuff they produced in the show. It just, from what I've heard, kids, I was originally watching it at the time, I watched reruns of it later. Apparently, kids at the time were not fans of the environmental message at all. They hated that. They liked the main story, the action, but the environmental message that Captain Planet had to give at every episode, they hated that. They thought that was the most boringest part of the episode. Because kids don't like to be educated while watching a cartoon. So, in the case of this, so they used the powers and they sealed the Abyss, and you would think, like, oh, this is done. Story over, right? Well, not just yet, per se. There is an aftermath. A long aftermath that takes up the rest of the manga. You would think, basically, if you read the manga, like, at this point, you think, oh, the series is over. The rest of the manga feels like it's a sequel. Or, like, a aftermath. But here's what happens. So, everybody's all celebrating, and over, they pretty much go, of course, Satoru collapses. And then he wakes up, and the 5 Ring Princesses are basically all around him, and they're all butt naked. And I saw this, I'm like, Satoru, you lucky bastard. Yeah, it's not the first time I've seen this, where a guy is in bed with a bunch of women. And then, of course, one of Gachu's, one of her people, basically. And, of course, they get dressed. And they skip the parade, which that was in the manga. The anime skips it. They go straight to another ceremony that happens right after, which I don't mind the parade being skipped because they probably have to move stuff along because they're probably running out of time. So they have him give a speech and say basically to everybody. And of course, Nefertiti's brother wants her to come home. She says no. Excuse me. And Genhart basically wants her parents are egging her on about giving them grandchildren against the whole battle with Pisky, and she's embarrassed by it, but I'm sure she probably wants to have something to give her kids. But of course, despite the fact that he's praised the hero, not everybody trusts him because of the power. So, and then of course, basically, Mars' father had planned to send assassins to kill Satoru, but luckily enough, he suspected, so then, of course, they go to kill him, and he and the Ring Princesses all disappear. Now, what happens next before they show what they have the basic on the table? They cut the bit out here where you have him waking them up, and of course making the dinner, and then you have them basically like around a table. Basically, it's all moved to the real world, and they're briefly in the Sage and Maron show up basically with law books. So, because apparently Satu, because of marrying Hime, he becomes the king of her country. Yep, and well. And they decide what to do, and then they cut the next bit out, and then they cut the next bit out. Then basically, and the episode ends with them doing what appears to be dishes, and then making out, and that's where the episode ends. You're like, really? Well, they do have a flashback, believe it or not, of the very first episode of the show that aired 2 years ago. Yes, seriously, and. They did that basically after the investigating at the flashback, which I didn't mind them showing that. That was fine. Here's the weird thing about the first season of the show. Did you know the first season aired 10 years after the manga started? Yeah. Not year or two, 10 years. Because the manga started back in 2014. I first heard about this series back in like 2018, 2019-ish. I read a little bit. I put it to the side because it looks interesting, but I didn't get back to it, and I eventually got back to it and read the whole thing. But as in the case of this anime, it was really good. I enjoyed the season for what it was. Do not know if we're going to get season 3 or not, because there are still chapters being adapted. Like, if you think about it, there's technically 16 left. I mean, they could easily adapt the rest, chapter 70, in just one episode, along with adapting the rest. I mean, that could easily take up a quick mini-series. I'd say about 6 episodes. Yes. Because, like I keep saying, I kind of suspected this, that the anime, based upon how many episodes were left, at several points, I kept like, there's got to be either Core 2 or Season 3. Or they can increase the number of minutes per episode. They didn't do that. The minutes thing, that's around the window. So the only two options they have, well, I don't think they plan to do a Core 2 for this. I haven't heard anything per se about it. But in the case of what they could do, the only options that they have, a movie is out of the question because that requires a big epic event. The rest of the manga, there's all that at all. So I would probably say that the only option that this anime has in order to finish adapting the manga, which you got about 16 chapters left, is a season 3. Probably one that's not very long. I don't think it has to be 12, 13 episodes. Given the fact there's like 16 chapters left to adapt, they could probably do it easily because if they want to do like 2 chapters an episode, they could probably do it either in 8 episodes, maybe 9. I think the most they probably do is maybe 10 if they're lucky. But that's all they can do now is do a season 3 because that's the only option they have is do a season 3 of this. Would they? That depends upon the studio. I would think that the season's been... Now, I would say overall, the season did a really good job adapting the manga. Yes, they did skip some stuff with this last episode, but from 69, it didn't really hurt the pacing at all by skipping the parade. I think that was fine. I don't think anybody who read the manga had a problem with it at all. I think in the case of Chapter 70, I think the partial adaptation, you could say it leaves it kind of open for Season 3. It's possible, but like I said, it depends upon the studio. If we're going to get one. Do I want one? Yes. Yes, I do. The season itself was really good. Loved it. And with that, basically, Tales of Wed Rings has officially left my review schedule for now until whenever they decide to do a Season 3. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, to notifications. Next up we have is the final episode of Spy X Family Season 3. And oh boy, I'll talk about that. Okay? Next video. Bye.